Hey everybody, how are we doing today? Hopefully better than AOC. I hope she gets over whatever she has, that makes her so stupid. Must be some sort of disease, am I right? Alright everybody, so no deal Brexit could end Japan investment boom. Envoy tells UK PM rivals. Japan on Thursday cautioned the two candidates vying to replace Prime Minister Theresa May that a no-deal Brexit would be so disruptive for many companies that Japanese capital's 35-year bet on Britain could end. In an appeal to both Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt, Foreign Minister Taro Kono said Tokyo did not want a no-deal Brexit, that some companies were already moving out and that more investment could go.
I know Boris, and I know Jeremy, both of them pretty well.
Kono told Reuters in Osaka, where a G20 summit begins on Friday.
I have communicated with them that Japan wouldn't want no-deal Brexit, so hopefully Brexit could be done through an ordinary and calm way.
Japan has long seen Britain as a pro-business liberal gateway into the rest of the European Union and has around 1,000 companies based in the country, including major car makers and technology firms. Japanese firms have invested over £60 billion in Britain. But following the 2016 vote to leave the European Union, some Japanese firms have begun moving business out of Britain, with particular concern over the impact of a possibly disorderly exit on October 31st. Please, no-deal Brexit. No-deal Brexit. Kono told the BBC some companies are already starting to move their operations to other places in Europe. Asked whether investment could leave Britain, Kono said it would be that there is going to be less investment. Proroguing. Parliament on the table. Yeah, actually a word I had to learn today, proroguing. It basically means to discontinue without dissolving. But both Johnson and Hunt have both said they would be prepared to take Britain out of the bloc without a deal, although it was not their preferred option. No deal means there would be no transition period, so the exit would be abrupt. The nightmare scenario for many businesses and the dream of hard Brexiteers who want a decisive split. Some pro-EU British lawmakers have said they will seek next week to block a new Prime Minister from taking Britain out of the bloc without a deal, and against the will of Parliament, by trying to cut off some of the government's funding. Johnson has been bullish, vowing that Britain would definitely leave the EU on October 31st, deal or no deal, although he has also said that the chances of leaving without an agreement are 1,000,000 to 1. At a hustings of some of the Conservative Party members who will ultimately elect the replacement for May, Johnson again said he could not rule out proroguing or suspending Parliament until the Brexit deadline, to prevent lawmakers blocking a no-deal divorce. The way to get that deal, of course, is to make sure we prepare for no deal, he said, ridiculing concerns that a no-deal Brexit would hit aviation and food supplies. The planes will fly, there will be drinking water, whatever happened on November 1st in this country, and believe me, there will be milk solids and glucose, and whey for our Mars bars. Where there's a will, there's a way. He added, Mars bars, huh? Chocolate. Peugeot decision. However, car makers do not share the same optimism. French car makers Peugeot also said on Thursday that plans to build the next generation Astra vehicle at its Elsmore Port car plant, which would keep the site open, will depend on the terms of Brexit. The decision on the allocation of the Elsmore Port plant will be conditional on the final terms of the UK's exit from the European Union, and the exception of a new vehicle agreement which has been negotiated with the Unite trade union, it said. The factory built around 5% of Britain's 1.5 million cars last year. The Astra will also be made at Peugeot's Rüsselsheim plant in Germany. Automakers have been particularly vociferous in their opposition to a no-deal Brexit, due to fears over tariffs of up to 10% on vehicle customs delays and new bureaucracy, which could cripple just-in-time production practices. Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government had attracted Japanese car makers to Britain in the 1980s to rebuild an ailing domestic industry which promises of access to the European single market. And of course, Japan would be stupid not to take up that sort of deal. Last year, Nissan, which means brother in Japanese, Brother Motor Company, Toyota Motor Corporation, don't know what that one means, and Honda Motor Corporation, Honda is a proper name, made roughly half of Britain's 1.5 million cars, employing tens of thousands of people, both directly and through the supply chain. Brexiteers have long argued that the EU's biggest economy, Germany, which exports hundreds of thousands of cars to Britain every year, would not impose restrictions in order to protect that trade. Some Brexit supporters say there would be a short-term disruption, but in the long term, the UK would thrive if cut free from what they cast as a doomed experiment in German-dominant unity that has led to Europe falling behind China and the United States. The Honda announced earlier this year that it will close its British plant, whilst Nissan cancelled plans to build a new sports utility vehicle at the Sunderland factory in the north of England, both blame factors other than Brexit. If there's a no-deal Brexit and if they have to go through actual custom inspections, physically those operations may not be able to continue, Kono said. But at the same time, you can't really blame them for wanting to leave the European Union, wanting a Brexit, when you consider the fact that the politicians elected for these countries through the EU have done an absolutely piss-poor job of representing the people they're supposed to be leading. It's not totally unlike when America was under British rule and America was not being properly represented. Taxation without representation. This is somewhat similar in the sense that these politicians do not represent the people they're leading. They represent themselves. They represent their own interests. And they represent Brussels. Because that is the headquarters of the EU. That is where you are being ruled from. It, in many ways, is a similar scenario. Only I suspect it will be met with a lot less violence and a lot more negotiation. So I guess the similarities are more fundamental. But in the end, the EU is really just sort of a microcosm of globalism. It's a big old financial block. Imagine if the rest of the world did that. Just a series of financial blocks and no countries. Such a transition would not be easy. A lot of populations would inevitably end up getting displaced due to the lack of properly established borders, which is what's going on in the EU right now. Populations are slowly being displaced by people from the Middle East and Africa. Which you could understand why nativists would be upset by this. Their ancestors, maybe your ancestors, have lived on that land since the beginning of recorded history. By every right, it is your land, therefore it is free for you to share or not share as you see fit. If you wanted to build an ethno-state, you would have the right to do so. But that's totally up to you. So when you let these people in, it's going to upset the nativists. I think it would be best to try and represent, as a politician, try and represent as much of your populace as possible. Occasionally some few really extreme groups have to be disenfranchised, but the nativists are not as extreme as they're made out to be. They get hit with label like Nazi, racist, fascist. But if you compare their beliefs to the beliefs of actual Nazis, they don't quite line up. Not 100%. I have yet to hear a British or German or even a French nativist who has actually called for the mass murder of these immigrants. Because it's literally not a thing. They're not Nazis. They're just people who are proud of their heritage and are afraid that the economic migrants who are also pretending to be refugees are going to get in, displace the population slowly over time, and cause a radical change that ends up rendering it no longer their country. And that's a legitimate concern. Where's their representation, Europe? Hell, even in America, we're willing to listen to people like that. And they have no claim to this land, unless they're Indians. But even we'll listen to them. I'll humor them. But yeah, you could totally understand why someone would want to leave the EU. So I think Japan should take that into consideration. That Taro Kono should take that into consideration. That the EU has basically totally fucked up as far as representation of its people. Which, since it's a microcosm of globalism, should really come to you as no surprise.